Thank you all for coming. Thank you all very much. Please be seated. Thanks for coming. It's great to be back in Little Rock. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for coming. I've got something on my mind, which is how to make sure this country is safe for generations to come, and how to make sure this country is financially secure for generations that are coming up. So thanks for coming. As you can see, I'm joined on the stage here by some fellow citizens who are willing to discuss the Social Security issue. But before I get there, I've got some other things on my mind I want to share with you. First, I want to thank the governor, Mike Huckabee, for doing such a fine job as the governor of the state of Arkansas. I want to thank his Lieutenant Governor, Win Rockefeller, for doing such a fine job. Thank you all for being here. I know we got members of the State House who are here, the State Senate, and the State Legislature. I appreciate you all serving. I appreciate you all coming. I hope you find this dialogue as interesting as I think you're going to. I mean, this is going to be an interesting discussion about a big issue. And I believe those in the legislative branch appreciate somebody from the executive branch who's willing to set a big agenda. See, the job of the president and the job of a governor is to confront problems, not pass them on to future generations, future Congresses, or future presidents. And that's what we're here to discuss today. I want to thank Mayor Pat Hayes from North Little Rock for joining us. I appreciate you coming, Mayor. I want to thank all the local, and thanks for coming, Mayor. Fill the potholes and everything will be fine. Huckabee's probably saying, send me the money. Anyway, I really thank you for coming. When I landed today, I met Katya Lizena. Where's Katya? There she is. Thanks for coming. Katya, let me tell you about this story. I want to, because it is, I think, representative of the true spirit of America. Katya was adopted by Jan. Where's Jan? Thanks for coming, Jan. Katya, you see, was born and raised in Russia, and her parents died. And Jan, out of deep compassion for a fellow human being, adopted Katya. And here she is in America. She came as an 11-year-older. She's a teenager. I'm not going to tell you her real age. Let me just say she's under 20. But guess what? She has raised 4,000 books to help build libraries for after-school programs. She helps raise money for food banks in the Little Rock area. She started Hope's Miracle to help raise money for other to pay for help for families who are adopting a child. This little child has come from a faraway land and is repaying the love and compassion of her stepmom and her country by serving as a volunteer in the Army of Compassion. She represents what many others here and around our country represent, and that is the strength of America. The strength of America is found in our hearts and souls. We can and we will change America one heart, one soul, one conscience at a time, by surrounding those who hurt with love and willing to dedicate our time to making our communities a better place. Thank you, Katya, for the example you've set. We'll talk about a couple of other things, and then we'll get to Social Security. I enjoyed giving the State of the Union. Interestingly enough, the day after the State of the Union, we had a national prayer breakfast. When asked to speak, I said it seemed like the State of the Union was a moment of prayer. These members were praying that I'd keep my speech short. But I enjoyed giving it. And I enjoyed reminding our nation we're still at war. And for every time one of our brave soldiers brings to justice somebody who's trying to hurt America, we are safer. And that is why I said with confidence that we will stay on the offense until we have won this war. And I reminded our Congress, so long as we've got soldiers in harm's way, they deserve the best support. And I'm confident we'll get that support out of the Congress. And I want to thank the good folks from Arkansas whose sons and daughters have gone overseas to defend our freedom. I know a lot of people from Guard units, reserve units, and on active duty from this great state have served. And I'm proud of the service, and I know you are as well. Every time a country goes from tyranny to freedom, we're safer as well. On the one hand, we'll stay on the offense, working with our friends and neighbors and allies to bring people to justice. On the other hand, we'll continue to spread freedom. Think about what has happened in a quick period of time. People in Afghanistan voted for the president. First time in 5,000 years. That's a long time. And we're better off for it. The world is better off when a society goes from tyranny to freedom. When a society is free, it has to listen to the demands of its people. Moms and dads universally want to raise their child in a peaceful environment. People just want the best for their kids when they grow up. They want the world to be peaceful. When governments listen to the demands of the people, it is more likely that peace will prevail. Palestinians elected a new leader. He's showing signs that it's necessary to fight terror so that we can achieve peace with Israel. The Ukrainian people elected a new leader. Think how far that society's come. And last Sunday, the Iraqi people, in the face of incredible odds, went to the polls. And it's important. That's an important moment. It's an important moment in history because it showed that a few tyrants and terrorists and killers cannot stop the will of men and women. See, what we believe in America is that freedom is universal because freedom is the Almighty God's gift to each man and woman in this world. That's what we believe. And it's very important. It is very important for people in Arkansas and around the country to understand that a free Iraq is in our national interests. If part of our duty is to leave behind a more peaceful world for our children and grandchildren, a free Iraq in the heart of the Middle East will set a powerful example for others who long for freedom. I mean, we have a chance to continue this incredible march of history toward free and democratic societies. I thought the most important moment of the State of the Union, of course, was when the mom from Pflugerville, Texas, hugged the woman, the human rights advocate from Baghdad. It said it was a powerful moment for people to see the gratitude of the Iraqi people expressed in a hug toward a mom who suffers as a result of her son sacrificing his life, not only for our freedom, but for the freedom of people far away. It spoke volumes to me. It said that people want to be free. And I think the freest nation on the face of the earth has a duty to help those who desire and long for freedom to achieve that dream. And in so doing, this world of ours will be more peaceful in Iraq. We'll continue to stand with those. They said to me, are you going to have a timetable? Timetables are the wrong thing to put out. All the timetable says, it says to the enemy, go ahead and wait. No, the timetable is this. We will continue training the Iraqis as fast as possible so they have the capacity to meet their will, which is to defeat these terrorists. See, they voted overwhelming numbers in the face of terrorism. I'm convinced that when given the tools, they will defeat the terrorists. And when the Iraqis are ready to defend themselves, our troops are coming home with the honor they have earned. A couple of other things before we get to Social Security. I was heartened to see today that we added 146,000 new jobs in the month of January. The national unemployment rate went down to 5.2%. We're making progress. I assure you, however, we will not rest on our laurels. We know that there's more things we can do to create an environment in which jobs continue to expand. For example, be wise with your money. Monday, I'm submitting a budget. It says that if the program doesn't make sense, it doesn't meet priorities, or doesn't make results, we're either going to cut it back or eliminate it. I think we can get us an energy bill finally. We've been talking about it we've been wasting a lot of energy talking about it. Now we can get a common sense bill that says, you know, let's conserve more. Let's spend money on research to be able to use coal in clean ways. Why don't we promote safe, clean nuclear energy? I mean, we need to do things like advanced research on ethanol and biodiesel. I mean, can you imagine someday it'll make sense for a president to say, gosh, the crop report looks strong. It means we're less dependent on foreign sources of energy. I mean, there's a lot of common sense things we can do and must do to keep this economy growing and make us less dependent on foreign sources of crude. I can just hear Laura now. So keep it short, let everybody else talk. But she's not here. So anyway, I'm going to keep going. I know she wishes she were here. By the way, she is a fabulous woman. I'm lucky she's my wife, and she's a great First Lady. A couple other points I want to make on the domestic scene. If you're a small business owner, I think you ought to be allowed to pool risk across jurisdictional boundaries. That means if you're a restaurateur in Little Rock, you ought to be teaming up with a restaurateur in Austin to be able to buy insurance for your employees so that you can better afford insurance. Congress needs to let small businesses do that so we can get insurance to people who work for small businesses. I'll tell you something else we need to do. I feel very strongly about this when it comes to health care. I am deeply concerned about the number of lawsuits that are running up the cost of medicine and running good doctors out of practice. You may not think that people in my position are able to get out and listen to people, but we actually are able to do so. And one of the common complaints I heard about our current legal system around the country was from OBGYNs and expectant moms. Because these lawsuits are running OBGYNs out of practice, too many expectant moms are nervous about whether or not they're going to get good health for themselves and their babies. We have a real problem in America with these junk lawsuits. It's like a legal lottery, and it's costing our citizens, patients, and doctors a lot of money, and it's costing the federal government a lot of money. I believe medical liability is a national problem. I have proposed a national solution, and I call upon Congress and members from the United States Senate and the House of Representatives from Arkansas to support doctors and patients with good liability reform. I got the message. Get to the point. Social Security. First of all, I think it should interest you that a president is traveling the country talking about Social Security. And see, I see a problem, and I'm about to describe it to you. And I have a duty, therefore, to make the problem as clear as I can to as many people as I can. I started that the other night at the State of the Union. I'm traveling. This is my 4th state. I'm going to Florida from here. 5 states, 2 days. With this message, we have a problem, and I intend to lead the Congress to fix it. But I understand problems sometimes don't get fixed until the people of the country start saying, we see the problem, and you go fix it. And that's what we're here to talk about. And so here's the problem. The problem is that the mathematics of Social Security has changed significantly since the program was designed. Franklin Roosevelt designed the program. It was a system where the money came in and was supposedly going to accumulate and pass out when people retired. And there were a lot of workers for every beneficiary. By 1950, there were 16 workers paying into the system for every beneficiary. In other words, there was quite a few people whose payroll taxes went into the system to meet the promises the government had made to the retiree. And that's fine. And by the way, during that era, life expectancy was around 60 years old. Now, what has changed is this. First of all, we're living longer. I mean, I hope to make it past 60. I got 3 more years to go. The life expectancy is 77 years now. You know, mom and dad are 79 and 80. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. People are living longer. And therefore, the whole formula, part of the formula, doesn't hold up. The longer you live, the more benefits you receive. And when you couple that with the fact that the baby boomers, like me, are fixing to retire, not only are we living longer, and therefore receiving benefits longer than anticipated when the system was designed, more of us will be living longer, receiving more benefits. Plus, the benefits are scheduled to rise dramatically. So you've got more people living longer, receiving benefits longer, at a greater level of support. Plus, the number of payers into the system have declined from 16 per beneficiary to 3.3 per beneficiary. And in relatively short order, it's going to be 2 people paying in for beneficiary. Now, that's a problem because the system can't sustain itself. And as this chart shows you, in the year 2018, the Social Security system goes into the red. That means more money going out to baby boomers who are living longer with greater benefits promised than coming in payroll taxes. See, it starts to go negative. Up to now, it's been positive. Up to now, we've been receiving more in payroll taxes than have gone out to pay. But the dynamics shift dramatically when the baby boomers start coming into the system. And in 2027, that deficit will be $200 billion a year. It grows every year. 2018 is small. By 2027, it's going to require $200 billion extra dollars to pay off the promises. 2033, these are just examples of how it increases the deficit increases on an annual basis. 2032, I believe it is, comes out to be about $300 billion. So you can see the problem. I mean, we're short. In order to fulfill the promises for the number of people paying in the system, we're going to have to come up with $200 billion a year in 2027, and more the next year, and more the next year, and more the next year, unless we do something about it. Now, I know there's some people saying, uh-oh, how does that affect my check? I'm on Social Security now. You're fine. You don't have a thing to worry about. The Social Security system is sound for those who have retired and those who are near retirement, people born before 1950. It is in good shape. Nothing will change. And part of the problem with dealing with this issue, part of the problem is seeing the problem and coming up with a solution is a lot of people in political life are afraid of talking about it because they're afraid somebody in their state is going to say, well, when you talk about Social Security, really what you're doing is taking away my check. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen those campaigns. Oh, so-and-so is going to take away my check. Well, that's just not reality. Those are scare tactics. Senior citizens are just fine. It's the younger folks that ought to be saying, what you going to do about it, Mr. President? If my generation is now going to be saddled with $200 billion in 2027 and more the next year and more the next year till the system gets bankrupt in 2042, how about doing something about it now before it is too late? That's why I think, see, the dynamics have shifted. It used to be people were afraid to talk about Social Security. Now I think people should be afraid not to talk about Social Security and start coming up with some solutions. It's one thing for the president to say we got a problem. Now I believe I have a duty to help lead Congress toward a solution. Let me just say right off the bat, I'm open for any idea except raising payroll taxes to solve the problem. If anybody's got an idea, bring it forth. I don't care if it's a Democrat idea or a Republican idea or an independent idea. I'm interested in working with the people who end up writing the law to come up with a good idea. And so all options are on the table, as I said in the State of the Union the other night. Bring them on, and we'll sit down and we'll have a good discussion about how to get something done. I think it's really important that the Congress understand that's how I feel. And we're not going to play political gotcha. Dealing with the security of our youngsters is vital. And now's not the time to make this issue a highly partisan issue. And I really mean that when I say that. Now, I've got some interesting ideas, and I think they're worth listening to. And one of the most interesting ideas of all is whether to allow a younger worker to be able to set aside some of his or her payroll taxes into a personal retirement account. I think younger workers ought to be allowed to do that. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I think they ought to be allowed to do that. Because I understand that with a conservative mix of stocks and bonds, a person can earn a rate of return which is significantly greater than the rate of return that person's money now earns in the Social Security Trust. And that's important because over time, when your money compounds, when the rate of interest compounds your money, it means a younger worker will be able to accumulate a lot more money per dollar in than he or she would if the money stayed in the Social Security Trust. In other words, it grows better. And that's important. It's important for a younger worker to be able to grow his or her money, particularly given the fact that there's some significant cash deficits headed our way. Secondly, I like the idea of encouraging an ownership society. I think people ought to be encouraged to own something in America. You'll be owning a part of your retirement account. It's actually your money to begin with. It's not the government's money. I mean, you're paying it in. I think it makes sense for people to be given a statement on a quarterly basis. Here's your money and here's how it's growing. Now, there's some legitimate questions regarding this system. One, can you take your money and put it in the lottery? No. The answer is not only no, but heck no. You can't take it and play dice with it. You can't take it to the track. You can't gamble on, fly-by-night stocks. You can only put it in a conservative government prescribed mix of stocks and bonds, just like the federal employees get to do. See, we have done this before. It's called the Federal Thrift Plan. Federal employees are given 5 programs from what to choose. The individual gets to choose what the mix of stocks and bonds, but they're conservatively planned. And obviously, the more conservative a mix of stocks and bonds, the less risk you'll have. But it doesn't take much risk to get a better rate of return on your money than that which is in the Social Security Trust. Secondly, can you take it all out when you retire? No, it's there a part of your retirement. You're going to get some money out of the Social Security Trust, and that money coming out of your personal account will be combined with the money out of the Social Security so that you can have a good retirement. Thirdly, can you leave it to who you want? You bet. And that's where all of a sudden the plan begins to differ. Right now, you can't. Right now, you can't leave a dime of the money you put in the Social Security system to anybody. And under this plan, you will. And so this is something I'm asking Congress to consider. Now, I understand it's hard. It's a new idea. It's a new way of thinking. But it's one good way to make sure this system is around for our younger workers. And there's a lot of benefits to it. And I'm looking forward to continue traveling our country talking about these ideas. That's one of my duties as the president, to confront problems, say we got a problem. And as you know, I'm here in Little Rock and was in Omaha and Fargo and in Montana, and I'm heading down to Florida. And the idea is to say, folks, we got a problem. Now let's work together. And sometimes in Congress, if they start to balk, or in the Senate they balk, maybe it helps to have the people say, I agree with the president. He says we got a problem. He showed the chart. And now why don't we all come together and get something done? And that's why I'm here, besides being able to be with the good folks of Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay. Andrew Biggs is with us. He is the Associate Commissioner for Retirement Policy of the Social Security Administration, Washington, D.C. In other words, he is an expert on the subject. Andrew, step forth. Let the people of Arkansas, no, sit forth. Let the people of Arkansas.
Thanks very much.
Tell them whether or not we got a problem or not from your perspective.
Put simply, we do in fact have a problem.
By the way, this guy, PhD, see, I was a C student. He's a PhD, so he probably got a little more credibility. I do think it's interesting, it should be heartening for all the C students out there. Notice who's the president and who's the advisor. All right, Andrew, get going. Andrew's got a good sense of humor.
Thank you very much. If you've read the newspapers lately, or if you've been watching TV, obviously there's a lot of stories about Social Security and Social Security reform out there. And it's very easy to get confused by them, to see there's a lot of big numbers and a lot of words and a lot of conflicting claims out there. And so it's hard to make sense of it sometimes. But the core issues with Social Security are actually pretty simple. As the President noted, Social Security is what you call a pay-as-you-go program. And that's just a fancy way of saying the money that comes out of your paycheck each week doesn't go into an account to be saved and invested for your retirement. It immediately goes out the door to pay benefits for today's retirees. Now, that sort of system worked very well when Social Security started, because you had a lot of people paying into the system and not very many people collecting. People had big families, a lot of kids, a lot of people working, but people didn't live very long, so you didn't have so many people collecting. As the President noted, in the 1950s, there were around 15 or 16 workers supporting each retiree. But as people live longer, and more people survive to retirement age, they live for a longer period after retirement age, that means more people are collecting out of the system. But lower birth rates mean fewer people paying into the system. So that 15 workers supporting each retiree back in the 1950s has fallen to around 3.3 workers per retiree today. Now, this process of population aging is going to continue. By the time I retire, there will only be around 2 workers supporting each retiree. Now, when that worker to retiree ratio falls, it means a greater burden on each worker. When Social Security started, the tax rate was only 2% of your wages. Today, it's 12.5% of your wages. And in the future, on the current path, those taxes would have to go even higher. Now, when you consider that Social Security taxes are already the biggest tax that most workers pay, bigger than the income tax, raising taxes can be difficult for some people. Now, when you look at Social Security's deficits, which begin in 2018 and continue after that, if you add them all up together, it totals around $10 trillion. That means you'd need about $10 trillion today invested to put Social Security on a sustainable track permanently. Now, $10 trillion is a very, very big number. It doesn't make sense to most people. But if you divide that number by the number of families paying into Social Security, it comes out to about $100,000 per family. That's about the size of a home mortgage. So the Social Security deficit is kind of like a second mortgage that you didn't really know about. And like a mortgage, it grows each year with interest. It gets bigger over time. And also like a mortgage loan, if we don't pay it off today, it goes to our kids or our grandkids to pay off. So you can see the problem gets bigger over time. So the lesson we can take from this, clearly there are choices that have to be made to address Social Security. And some of them are going to be tough choices. But the lesson we can take is the longer we wait, the tougher those choices get. That $10 trillion or the $100,000 per family, there's no time in the future when that number is going to be smaller than it is today. There's no time in the future when the choices are going to be any less tough than they are today. And so that's why people say we should move today to act on this system or act on these problems rather than putting off the problems to the future.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good job. Irma Fingers Hendricks. She introduced me one time right here on the banks of the river.
Yes.
Isn't that right?
That's
Eloquent then and still eloquent now. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Proud you're here.
My comment has to do with, as a senior, 74 years of age, I was born before Social Security was established. And I have talked with many of my neighbors and friends, particularly those whose ages range from 55 up, that they are safe, they have nothing to worry about. And I have a daughter in the audience today. She's a baby boomer, and she has nothing to worry about. And I feel that my concern is really for that other generation. I have a 30-year-old grandson that resides in St. Louis, and I called him last night because I wanted to get some input from some of the grands. And Kibi said to me, Granny, I don't know much about it, but share some of the things. And what I did, I asked him if he watched the State of the Union message, which he did, and I said to him, would you rather keep what we have or deal with the plan that needs to be fixed? And that would be putting his funds, which now go into Social Security, but into a personal fund. And he said, Granny, go for it. So that's why I'm here, to really, really, really.
Thank you, Irma. freedom at home. And that it makes a guy feel pretty darn good who's lucky to be your president. God bless you all.